All right. Good morning, everyone, again, and warm welcome to the webinar. So myself, Srijit Terail from YASH Technologies. I'm part of the European business division for YASH Technologies. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining this webinar again. You'll be on a listen-only mode. You'll be muted from our end until the question and answer section in this presentation. So I'd like to give a quick introduction about the presenters here. So I have Johan Amsing, who is managing the enterprise asset management practice from Magnus, and Yogesh Nagpal, who's heading the EH&S practice for YASH Technologies. So I would like to hand over the floor to Johan Amsing, who will be taking it from here. Johan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So very welcome everyone to this webinar about how to manage your assets and still comply and also to safety. I will first introduce Magnus briefly. So we are located in the Netherlands for 20 years now, and we try to implement the best possible solutions together with our customers, focusing on not just the systems but also the process and organization. And in this field we do that mostly with tools from SAP. What tools from the asset management area I will discuss in a couple of minutes. But besides enterprise asset management, we also focus on BI solutions, data warehouse solutions, and financials and logistics. So the whole area of most areas of ERP actually. So within the area of enterprise asset management, we focus on plant maintenance mostly. It's the basic core processes, but also other add-on solutions like multi-resource scheduling and management of change, some mobile solutions, and obviously for the last couple of years also more data-driven maintenance solutions to become a more data-driven organization. But as stated, I will discuss that in a bit. During this webinar, we'll obviously not go in all that detail of all the different solutions and topics. So if you want to discuss that in more detail, you're welcome to contact us after the webinar, but also like Srijit already stated, in the end of the webinar you can ask us some questions. But first, Yogesh, up to you to introduce please YASH.
Sure, Johan. So thank you again for everyone joining in. My name is Yogesh Nagpal, and I'm representing YASH for EH&S, Environment, Health and Safety Solution. So YASH as a company is as old as Magnus in Netherlands. We are almost 22 years old in operations, pretty much based across global. We have 30 plus delivery centers all across the globe, where we have around 4,500 plus employees who are focused on different technologies. And again, we have almost 400 different customers as well. In Europe, we work pretty closely with Magnus. This is around 20 plus years of engagement where we are joining hands and we are working together to provide best of the class services to our customers. Coming to our service portfolio, YASH is pretty much a holistic IT service provider company focusing on all technology areas: SAP, Microsoft, Pegasystems, Salesforce, Dynamics, and recently we are getting into RPA and IoT as well. So SAP being our strongest strength, we have almost 3,000 people in SAP, which is almost 60% of our strength, and similar number of customers and revenue gets generated through the service line. And in SAP, we do cover the package solutions, the infrastructure services, implementations, application maintenance, and the newer solution and newer technologies around this space. So again, I'll move forward to our partnership with Magnus. As I mentioned, that our engagement is more than 20 years with Magnus, where we are currently working. So Magnus gives us the local foot on the ground in Netherlands, Sweden, Germany, and then we have our own back-end teams, pretty much 4,000 plus people who are spread across the countries to support this nourishing engagement. Our comprehensive service portfolio across application management, infrastructure services, digitization, and specifically IoT, the asset management, and EHS are something which are the niche capabilities which we are taking across the region. And that is also one of the intent of this discussion, where we will be spending most of our time around asset management and health and safety solutions. So Magnus being present local pretty much understand the law of the land, and we give them the strength to go together and become a partner of choice for many large companies like BSF. We're working with Sandvik, we're working with Bilawal, and many big customers. These are some of these names which I just thought of mentioning, who are our current engaging partners. So finally, I'd like to say that the value proposition which Magnus and YASH brings on board together is definitely enriching, both in terms of localization and the strength across technologies and the newer verticals. So without taking much time, I will move to the subject of the discussion. So this slide from this slide onwards, for the next around 40 minutes or so, 35-40 minutes, we are going to focus on the subject or the core of the webinar, the enterprise asset management and health and safety as the solution, the new innovations around health and safety and asset management solutions from SAP, and how does the organizations Magnus and YASH together bring in a value for you to adopt this solution. So the message on the slide, I think, is pretty clear as we look at this slide. The message is that the maintenance and the downtime is definitely critical and crucial for all manufacturing organizations. So wherever you are, in whatever industry, if you are manufacturing, if you're into manufacturing operations, if you're into some kind of so-called fabrication, if you're into any kind of business where we are spending our time, the downtime is something which kills the productivity. And as per a global survey, the categorization of this downtime can be done across the areas like equipment failure, which eats up a huge amount of time, 2.64 hours per day, almost more than around close to 30% of my time is actually go every day in equipment failures. Now, to avoid such things, many companies are taking time out of to repair, to maintenance, and around 3 hours of the factories that got lost only for repairing this downtime or this maintenance. Now, but if you see that the preventive maintenance schedule as on date looks like somewhere around less than an hour. The message which probably is coming out of this picture is that if we are spending minimum amount of time where we would have addressed the maximum of the issues, and that's where the future looks a little different. The future clearly is showcased in the image below, which says that wherever we are spending a lot of time into run to failure and preventive, the word is moving towards predictive. So what happened yesterday, I learned the lesson from that and ensure that I do define my programs, my schedules, my maintenance plan based upon the prediction of failure, and hence reduce the failure time and the preventive maintenance time. Again, introducing another subject, maybe similar line of subject, that whenever we talk about assets, whenever an asset gets damaged, it's because of some incident, because of some near miss, because of some kind of a trigger which caused this. And if I go to the extreme level of an incident, a fatality, I think the number itself says that there are almost like 150 workers which got lost in 2016-17 in Great Britain itself. Again, the numbers are quite shocking. We are living in the world of robotics. We are living in the world of automation. Still, if you're talking about 500 plus manpower being lost across the MENA region, which is European and the Middle East region, within this kind of an year is really a shocking number. And if again, as per a survey, a cost attached, I'm talking about only the number which gets attached to in fatality at a plant is somewhere close to $1.5 million, $1.5 million. Definitely a huge number, but this is not only the number. There's not many things which go behind. The branding of the company, the reputation, the morale of the people who are working there, the local regulators, plus the investors. Now everybody is quite, again, this because of the thanks to the media, we are all aware about what's happening around. And I think that is the reason companies do take pride in investing money in the space of asset management, in the space of injury prevention, in the space of safety controls, and utilizing the technology and softwares to its best to get the results. So I think the message I wanted to give on this slide was pretty much on the utilization of the digitization and softwares towards the asset management, and the kind of say EHS can definitely help reduce the downtime and increase the productivity, plus the other benefits which we get from by using this. On the next slide, when we talk about the asset management solution as a whole, there pretty much is a spread about areas. Whenever we use the asset, many things come to my mind. It may be maintenance, it may be asset strategy, it may be management of change, it may be kind of the risk assessment, or we call it as the inspection management. So all these things basically weave in together to something called as my asset management planning or my asset management strategy. So maybe I would request Johan to quickly put some light on this slide and explain some of these factors from the solution to take us deep into this solution area. Johan.
Yes, thank you. So as stated, yeah, the asset is central in our approach. Yeah, with a focus on the processes on the side, like asset strategy, management operations, management of change, etc. We try to maximize the asset availability at the lowest possible price, but also keeping the risk in mind. So I will briefly explain the several topics on the side. Like with asset strategy, you're enabling yourself to measure and improve the performance of the assets and optimize the maintenance strategy. So, for example, by implementing a proper plan, do, check, act cycle, and also to choose the correct SAP solutions. In a moment, I will explain which new solutions SAP is working on to get a better understanding of how your asset is actually running. So with a focus on the data-driven maintenance, you are able to move from a reactive to a proactive approach, and being able to service your clients, external, internal, a lot better, and be able to implement new business models and operate based on validated maintenance decisions, and not just because you think an asset is not running properly. Now, based also on the data, you know the real health of your asset. But besides the strategy, of course, it's really important to focus on your daily maintenance operations. With our approach, we try to approve the daily maintenance operations in an optimal manner, with also the best SAP solutions, but I will talk to you about that in a bit. With your asset strategy and the data-driven approach, you need to have your inspection management process up and running as well. I mean, it takes a lot of effort for most of the asset intensive industries to get your inspections correctly set. So if you're able to run these processes more efficiently, you get real data in your systems to improve your process, but also the way your asset is maintained, and it can solve you or save you a lot of money, and also really important to mitigate your risks. So the last one for now is management of change. I mean, changing your assets, your procedures or processes, I mean, that's a common practice. But in most times, when you change these processes, for instance, or your assets, a lot of extra risk is coming in place. So being able to mitigate these risks, you need to have the change processes in place. Because for most of the companies, having control on these processes is basically their license to operate. Okay, so if we look into this asset strategy, actively monitoring your asset health is key to move from reactive to a more proactive maintenance approach. And using condition monitoring techniques, you can aim to prevent your functional or total failure of your assets by detecting the possible potential failure signals like vibration, noise, etc. So with our approach, like shown on the bottom of this slide, we aim for the big picture, but together with our customers, we try to start small, which basically means is not implementing a whole tool set and complex systems, but also focus first on your data, your process, and your organization. So the starting point is basically investing your current set of data, and in, for instance, a proof of concept in a couple of days, determine whether the data delivers potential failures and also patterns, for instance, but also which models can help you to get the correct evaluation and gives you real data to determine whether your asset needs to be maintained at a certain point of time. So if the outcome is positive, then the objective is to set up a proper system and the solution for data gathering and data preparation, and choosing the right models to get your evaluation process in place. And we are confident that with this approach, you know, after a short period of time, whether you don't only need to rely on your maintenance engineers, for instance, but also you can validate their thoughts with real or near real-time data and start becoming a more data-driven organization. So with that being said, for the last couple of years, SAP worked on their EAM suite as well. And this new suite contains a couple of new products like asset strategy and performance management, predictive maintenance and service, EAM, and predictive engineering insights. In this suite, the asset, like in our approach as well, is a central component. So that's shown on the left-hand side of this slide. And the asset is represented in the asset central layer, where all essential master data is stored and collected. And this layer is integrated with these products I just mentioned, but also with your backend systems like ECC or in the near future S4. So plant manager and reliability engineers can define and reevaluate the maintenance strategies to enable them to close their PDCA cycle and basically start with continuous improvement. And this can be done by using the asset strategy performance management, for instance. But nowadays, it's becoming more important to also share and collaborate with your suppliers, for instance, or with your customers. And to execute these maintenance strategies, you can make all the data available for all stakeholders. And this can be done with the solution of EAM, where, for instance, manufacturers, but also the operations can share their information like instructions, announcements, revisions, asset structures, etc., etc. But by monitoring the asset health, that's done by the last solution is PDMS, the predictive maintenance and maintenance solution, and which starts basically with condition monitoring using sensor data. And to take it one step further, SAP is working on machine learning techniques to implement that in the PDMS solutions as well to predict expected future breakdowns. And on the right hand side, there are some examples of some new screens SAP has developed, all in the Fiori style, obviously. So this is basically the new solution suite from SAP to get real-time insight, but also to optimize your assets and to start really continuous asset improvement. Okay, but the starting point before you can implement these new solutions is basically to have your daily maintenance operations in place. And that means that you have your overall process up and running, which, for instance, your ECC or S4 implementation using EAM functionality, but also supplies, finance, etc. But by optimizing these processes, a lot of additional SAP solutions can be implemented as well. Yeah? So with basically your basic EAM process, that's now on the slide. But with, for instance, MRS, which can be used to enable a real control of your resource planning, of your employees, your tools, but also your materials. And then all integrated in your ERP or S4 solution. Or, for instance, all the documents the maintenance engineers or the maintenance technicians need to perform their jobs. And you could think of drawings, manuals, quotations, etc., can all be part of your process, but also part of your assets and work orders, for instance. And in case the standard SAP solutions do not fit your requirements, we can easily model these processes using the Mendix platform. And I will tell you more about that in the next several slides. And as an example, we use the inspection management process for that. Yeah. So on this slide, an example inspection management process is shown, and a lot of customers have noticed that the standard SAP solutions do not really fit their requirements. And whether it's a process step of selecting the assets or executing your inspection in the field, or for instance, your validating process, it's not all smoothly working with the standard of SAP. So therefore, we create an easy to build, but also to implement solution based on SAP and Mendix. And Mendix is, for who doesn't know what it is basically a low-code platform, which integrates really great with SAP and makes it possible to easily create your new solutions based on your requirements. So, for instance, the asset manager should be able to monitor his assets, to be able to make sure that the quality of the asset data is outstanding. So what he needs to be able to do is mark his assets for control, for instance, based on preset rules, or basically by selecting his assets in his dashboards by himself. What he can do then is mark his assets for control and make sure that the inspector see his list of assets on his mobile phone and is able to inspect to enter the inspection results, and after that the asset manager is able to evaluate the results and approve the changes before it's being sent to your SAP system, for instance. So on the next slide, the inspector is just an example of how the screen could look like. So the inspector is able to get a list of all his assets he needs to assess. He is able to mark his assets as being registered, but also is able to register some changes, for instance. And if that's being done, the information is sent back to the asset manager, who can evaluate that process. So with this example, it's being shown that with the standard of SAP, where some steps are not really in SAP or built by SAP, it's really done easily by creating your own screens with Mendix. So from that, going to trying to mitigate the risks with your management of change processes. So every organization changes their assets and procedures, as being said already, mostly on a daily or weekly basis. But the real question is, are you in control? Are you aware of all changes you're making? And is it all documented well enough? So with the management of change solutions of Magnus and YASH, you're able to implement your own changes in a controlled way. And the MOC applications make sure that every type of change follows automatically the proper procedure, and that all tasks are executed by the right people. So, for example, if you have real smaller changes, not all the people of your organization need to review that, but if it's a bigger project, for instance, it makes sure that by using the right type of changes, automatically the whole proper procedure is followed. And in the end, the changes are completely transparent and traceable and well documented in an easy to use applications, which makes sure that your license to operate is not at risk. And the last thing I want to say about management of change is that MOC is one example of the asset management process and EH&S process comes together. For instance, how you are able to mitigate your risks in your change process by using the risk assessment functionality of EH&S. And Yogesh, hopefully you can make some remarks about management of change and EH&S as well.
Sure, Johan. So I think you pretty well mentioned that the management of change pretty closely integrates with the risk management and risk assessment operations. So I think into our industries, we keep doing risk assessment, risk management, like ergonomic risk, identifying those, mitigating those risks. So all these risk mitigation programs many a times call for a change, and for a smooth change, this management of change solution helps. Because at the end, we all understand that change is something which has to happen, but we all as an individual resist towards the change. But if the change is adopted in a smooth way, that actually helps all the operations as well as organization in a much longer way. I think that's pretty much the message which you wanted to convey here. So I think you brought in a very interesting point about risk assessment and risk management. I think I'll pick that slide and we'll talk about a little bit in detail about risk assessment. SAP does provide a risk assessment functionality in which we can identify various types of risk. Risk based upon job function, risk based upon location, risk based upon hazards. So whether it is job hazard analysis, job safety analysis, hazard identification and risk assessment, ergonomic risks. So all these risks which exist into a program, into a function, can be identified, and then we give a corresponding rating to the risk. The idea behind this functionality is digitizing your day-to-day operations around risk management. The way you identify a risk rating and you bring it down to an acceptable level, in the same way, system can record the occupational exposure limits, can map the tracking of those limits, maybe at a noise level, we can capture the value at every 3 hours, every 4 hours, and make a quick summary of the impact of that risk, and then defining the plan for that, mitigating those risks, which includes identification of new CAPAs, corrective action and preventive action. So this may involve some external stakeholders like the training team, the procurement team, if I have to buy new PPEs, or I think from the discussion where we are coming from, maybe the maintenance schedules or the management of change, where I need to change some procedure, I need to change some function, I need to change some operating guidelines. So all this in together brings me a holistic framework where we can identify the existing risk, try to define the control parameters to mitigate the risk, and then have a traceability about what happened and how. This can further be extended to even environmental reporting, because the risk assessment and environmental impact analysis are closely integrated subject in a real environment. So how do we identify the environmental permits? How do we capture the details about it, and then reporting it to different authorities through in different languages is something which is an inbuilt functionality of risk assessment. So whenever I'm talking about risk, I think I should also be talking around incident, which is one of the core subject of risk assessment. So in my next slide, I'm going to talk about incident management, which is the core function of the day-to-day operation for any health and safety team or a sustainability team. How many incidents happened? What is the root cause of that incident? How do we mitigate this incident? And if there is a need, do we need to do some kind of risk mitigation, risk management program or an audit? Are some of these things which get triggered through a small incident. Now, when I use the word small, it may be a safety observation that something is not going right. If I see some leakage there, some slippage, some spillage there, that can be an observation which, if not addressed, can lead to a major incident or an injury. Now, we can also record and report the near misses, which is like somebody slipped onto that so-called spillage, but he didn't get hurt. The good part is that he's able to stand up and walk, but that would have been worse, and it would have been an injury. So we can manage near miss process altogether into this program, and then the injuries, which none of us want, those can pretty much be recorded into the system. So as the life cycle goes, we can report the incidents, which is recording the near miss, safety observation, and the accident and injuries, which trigger a notification to the site EHS manager who start the investigation process. And within the investigation, we can have the detailed level of investigation, including the root cause analysis, defining the absences restrictions, and defining the control measures that how we can mitigate those risks. On the screen comes a quick video which tells that how we can report an incident through the mobile application in less than a minute. So the operator who is using a smartphone clicks on his app which says report incident. He goes to the plus button which says whether you wanted to report an incident, near miss, or observation. He selected an incident. In incident, it opens up a very small and intuitive 5 fields window where he can report what happened. So over here, the forklift has hit a container and the driver got injured, and the forklift also got damaged. So he immediately type it as what happened, took 1 or 2 pictures of the asset damage, identified the location where exactly this happened, and then answered 2 more simple questions which says who was injured and was there any asset which got damaged. If nobody got injured, it can still be kind of sent as a notification, but if somebody got injured, the system is integrated with your HR master and talks about how do we add this data and the asset into the system, and then say send. So you see that the reporting an incident is so simple that it brings in a culture of people to come towards this application and record more and more incidents. Many organizations are defining their KPIs that they should be able to define X number of near misses per quarter, per month. Everybody is expected to deliver 1 to 2 safety observations every week. So the objective behind some of these small applications and digitization is thinking about safety, not at an HSE level, but maybe at a person level, at an operator level, or maybe at a person who is a visitor. Should also think about safety, because an accident in my plant is my responsibility. And the right hand side, you see that the system is capable enough to support various regulatory reports. We talk about German reports or Ireland report or European health and safety reports. All those can be pulled from the system by click of a button, because all this data resides at one table linked to one incident. So the power of integration, the power of digitization is and the moving towards mobility is something which I try to demonstrate in this quick slide. Now, I think I also talked about something around audit management, so it will be unfair if I don't talk about audit at this point of time. So when I talk about audit management, I think all you experienced senior folks from the plant are not new to this process. But over here, what I'm trying to give a message is the system do have a capability of what you currently do into Excel sheets, into your papers for various checklists. So you define a plan, we identify the team, we give this paper to an invigilator or an inspection guy who goes over there, collects this information, give it back, and then we kind of say, define this question answer, take the answers from the questions, identify the corrective action, and then start the process. So pretty much it's a seamless activity which can be well managed through an intuitive mobile application. So on the left-hand side, you see that we can create mobile applications for daily inspection, weekly inspection, monthly inspections. It can be given to different people, who are responsible for these specific activities. And at the end, we can generate smart and real-time dashboards out of this data which we have gathered through these inspections. So the idea behind is that use of the technologies so that the brain can go and focus on the improvements, continuous improvement and Kaizen programs, rather than focusing more on the day-to-day operations or into Excel, Word, and documents. The system has a capability, and that's what I think we are trying to demonstrate, that these are some of the new age solutions or new age trends which are taking up the market and the industries and giving them a quick value and return on investments. An aligned principle or the follow-through approach is our corrective action and preventive action. So on this slide, next, which I'm talking about, is about the corrective action and preventive action management, a task management system. So you can consider it as a mini assistant for you. So where we are able to define tasks and actions on me. So today at 3:30, I have a webinar to deliver. So there is a person who helped me give notification a day before, a week before, an hour before that I should be ready for this webinar. If there is some report which calls for an action from a safety supervisor to give him his statistics, because during my safety audits, I need to be ready with certain numbers, we can define specific action plans. We can give it a date. We can assign the owners for these tasks by defining the appropriate priority as well as the completion status and timelines. And at the end, the person who is driving these audits or risk assessment or investigations can get a timely update into the graphical way, into the tabular way, to know the status of the tasks which are open. So action tracking and task management is pretty much an integral function of SAP functionality, all in both in our EAM as well as in EH&S. So the screen gives a very quick glimpse on how do these dashboards and KPIs look like. So you see that we are able to define the trend of the exposure to H2S gas at a particular work area. So if you talk about production area in a particular month, the exposure to HO gas was less, and it went over probably from operation area to operation area, from a workplace to workplace in terms of quantity. Similarly, if I talk about my health and safety budgets, how much budget was allocated to me, how much I spent, and how much of it went into PPEs, trainings, various types of ad hoc implementations. Those all things can be pretty much captured. Again, we can have multi-level dashboards. So what you see on the top is pretty much an incident on different plants, the incident with respect to statuses, the various types of near misses, and the safety observation being recorded with the status of open, close, in progress. So the idea behind is that we can define KPIs and we can define these interactive dashboards which give me meaningful outcome for my decision making. So everybody is living into the world of dashboards, technology, mobile applications. So again, I'm emphasizing on the visibility of emphasizing on the concept of analytics to drive effective decision making. Similarly, we can create dashboards around asset management as well. So the dashboard again is pretty rich. On the next slide, and explain the entire so-called the gamut of the things which are happening across my operations, across my production floor, the maintenance floor and production floor. So Johan, would you like to put some light on this? Again, this dashboard is further more intuitive and further more so-called detailed what we saw on the previous slide. So welcome your inputs on this.
Yeah, so on the left-hand side there are some typical KPIs in the area of asset management. Basically, of course, the asset is the central point in this dashboard, and you could think of the maintenance of the number of open change requests, for instance, of open incidents, but also the status of your current budget. And in the beginning of the year, of course, you have your budget for preventive maintenance, corrective maintenance, and a dashboard like this can show you per asset or for your whole plant what the current status of your budget is. But also your mean time to repair or your mean time between failure are indicators that your asset health is okay or needs to take care of certain assets in your plant. So in the end, your asset dashboard can have different views like lists or maps or pie charts and other type of views to get the real insight in your asset health. So that being stated, Yogesh, could you please share us some projects you worked on in the past in the field of EH&S?
Right. So right, as you mentioned, Johan, again, the time doesn't permit me to go in detail, but I'll quickly explain one or two of them, and we'll see. Again, we'll try to emphasize how did we together created value for some of these customers. So Crystal Global is one of the largest titanium dioxide manufacturer across Middle East region. The Crystal has been acquired by Tasni, and then they have also kind of being partnered with Tronox. This together makes them one of the largest company into this titanium dioxide production. So being into mining, being into the so-called the petrochemicals and very discrete industries, the health and safety has always been key for this industry. So how do we, again, SAP was implemented long back. Again, newer technologies were coming in, including the PII and artificial intelligence. A lot of processes were being talked about. But when we talked about health and safety, the journey started, I think, a couple of years back when we started with incident management functionality. Again, we looked at the deep down the functionality and the procedures of incident management, how the incident had happened, and moreover, what happens in Australia is different from what happens in Middle East. So we need to bring everybody on the standardized platform. So our competent consultants and team help them drive towards this standardization, define a program which is now currently working for a plant in Australia, a plant in US, as well as a plant in Middle East. Similarly, we did a lot of trainings in multilingual languages for the specific people. Again, this was focused training for the solution adoption. Nothing is right until and unless the things are being used properly. So the focus was to give something which is easy to handle, which is again quick to understand and delivers quick value. So we probably created a value for this solution across the group. Again, incident management was only the first trigger point. We went into the occupational health subject. We talked about management of change, and very recently we're talking about risk assessment and risk mitigation. Again, being a global company, pretty widespread, it takes time to go adopt program by program, but the good part is that once we are on the track, we will reach our destination, is the message which this company has been giving to its competitors, to its peer, by adopting the newest technologies. I'll take one more example quickly, one more case study about another chemical company, which is Chemtura. So again, we are partnered with Chemtura for more than a decade. So again, I took a different industry just to mention, just to kind of say highlight that it is not only the incident management and the life cycle subject. The team, the partnership is quite rich to support you on various regulatory requirements as well. So with this company, we are engaged for more than 10, 11 years now, and this company, as we all know, has been a part of big Lanxess group. So we have supported their entire EHS master data for various products, various classification, complying to the local regulation, regional regulations like REACH, California, again Canada, and the DSL and NDSL requirements, various country-specific formats and reporting. So pretty much we manage their entire product portfolio data into the system and ensuring a smooth business exchange across the boundaries. So this was so kind of well-knitted engagement that even after this Chemtura spin-off for 3 or 4 different companies for different business segments, we are continually supporting those business entities as well because of our in-depth knowledge on the product portfolio and the system architecture. So over here, I would like to bring out 2 or 3 messages. One is the continuity. So we bring value to the customers, which brings in by bringing in a lot of value time to time, and hence engaging on a long-term engagement like decade, 12 years, 15 years kind of an engagement. 2, the people bring in the variety of skills from the domain expertise. So we have people from chemical, mining, manufacturing, pharmaceutical, discrete, the oil and gas industry, who will be able to support you and who has gone through this life cycle of these operations day in and day out. And finally, the partnership with Magnus, with our reputed partners in region, pretty much puts ourselves strong in the foot, who understand the law of the land, provided and added together with our strong strength at the back end of around 5,000 people, supporting them on any technology, any niche areas, and any initiatives. There are more such customers. Again, I'll say that the time doesn't permit me to go along. So there is a glimpse of some other customers where we have worked. This includes Cheminova, this includes Detox, ONGC, Monsanto, Dow, Johnson & Johnson in Ireland. So pretty much of them. Stryker is a new name into the picture. So again, I think at this point of time, I'll quickly take a pause and open it up back to our organizers to ensure that, again, we can take some last couple of questions to address and define the next steps. Johan, would you like to add something over here with respect to the customers, or maybe in a minute or so, or we give it back to Srijit?
Yeah, let's focus on whether there are any questions at this moment, Yogesh. Yeah, let's do that. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Yogesh and Johan. So we'll open up this floor for the audience for any questions. So I'll unmute the audience. If they have any questions they can ask, or we can also look into the comment section if there are any questions posted so that we can address those.
Muted.
So maybe Srijit, you can put us on the next slide, which gives us some.
So I think we have a couple of questions here. So we'll look into this question. So can I use Mendix only to create a whole new process, or also just one step in a process like creating a notification? So that's the question to Johan. Probably Johan can answer that.
Yeah, definitely I can. So yeah, you don't need to use the combination of SAP and Mendix for a whole new or to adjust a current process. You can basically create new Mendix applications also just for one step in the process. So for instance, let's assume that your staff from production wants to have the ability to create a notification or a near incident at the plant. You're able to just create one application in Mendix for just that step. But as shown in the inspection process, you're also able to define a whole process with several steps in Mendix. So it depends on your requirements, what screens and process steps you want to define using Mendix, and what steps can easily be done with the standard functionality of SAP. So both options are basically available. Yeah.
All right. I think thanks for that, Johan. And we have one more question on the plant maintenance. So the question is, do we need a plant maintenance before we could utilize the EAM and EH&S completely? And how does this notification go to the various participants? Okay, please go ahead answering that, Yogesh.
Yeah, so I'll pick that question, Johan, and you may always add. So plant maintenance is definitely the key. If you can call it as the heart of the operation. But yes, if we probably do not have plant maintenance, there are many integrations which we are not able to take leverage of. So when I talk about my notification, if there is no plant maintenance implemented at a site, we can still send notification to people, but it will not get mapped with the maintenance schedule which is being generated into the system. So the answer is yes, plant maintenance is definitely needed to work and to effectively handle the EAM and EH&S operation, or let me use the word effectively utilize the benefits of EAM and EH&S. However, this is something, if it is not there, we can still continue to use it, which will give you maybe half-hearted or kind of say quite a reasonable result, but not the optimum output. What was the next question, Sheshiji? You said something about notification.
So we have one more question. How do we go to the participants? We are not in the system like maintenance, training, and procurement.
Right. So I think over here we are talking about more of an integration, the integration to the HR system, the HR master. If we have our people mapped into the system, the system is able to give us the quick notification into their SAP inbox. But again, we really don't need to worry about notification piece, because SAP this closely links with our action tracking and task management system, which we talked about. And SAP is pretty strong into notification, whether it goes to it can go to the emails, it can come to your mobile phones as a notification. So yes, so notification, there are multiple ways. It can go into an SAP inbox for an SAP user. It can go to their Outlook directly. It can also pop up into your mobile phone as an alert, as an alarm. So there are multiple ways of this notification.
Okay, thanks, Yogesh. So moving on to the next steps here. We'll take this as a next level conversation on our focus subject. Probably we can come up with a presentation around if we can identify a requirement around these solutions. And also we can probably propose a quick discovery session or a solution fitment study. And we do have specific solution and presentations that we demonstrate to our clients based on the specific requirements they might have. Looking at our transformation and digital transformation roadmap plan.
Right.
You can also contact us on the info. Yeah, please go ahead, Yogesh.
I'm sorry, Shrijit. I'll just quickly take around 30 seconds on the previous slide. So I think the message is that there can be multiple ways where we can engage together. I think the primary thing starts with identifying a need. We talked about EAM. Again, this was a very short time to talk about a subject like asset management, asset strategy, inspection management. EHS all together combined in half an hour's time. But yes, definitely this would have given you a quick idea or quick so-called thought about what's happening around, what's something which is available off the shelf from SAP as part of the new and niche solution offerings. So we can definitely identify a need, and our sales team can reach out to you where we can have set up a quick conversation. If there is a quick assessment needed that based upon my current system and landscape, can I go ahead with this? What should be my plan to implement this solution? What should come first and what next? Those kind of discussions, discovery and assessment can always be done. And again, as I said, that we have a pretty widespread sales force available in Europe region to provide you this consulting, this guidance and support as needed. And I'm sure that when we do this discovery, this would give us the next digitization and transformation roadmap where we want to walk together. Rest assured about the competence of the team. We have been into the market for 20-25 years, have been the partner of choice for industries, the manufacturing industry, and the kind of strength we bring in is sure is going to make our engagement successful, you successful in your operations, and we successful in our customer-centric delivery approach, which we are known for decades. So that's all, Shijit, from my side. I'm sorry. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. You can contact us in the information below, info@yash.com or info@magnus.nl for any questions or information you might require. And thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.